Greetings from the Sports Council and NITTSAC, the student alumni cell of NIT Trichy. Today, we are proud to present to you Synapse, a webinar on career in sports after graduation. Today, we have with us Mr. Badri Narayanan, an alumnus of the 1998 batch of NIT Trichy. Sir is a renowned sports psychologist, keynote speaker, and an expert in mental conditioning and performance, having coached the likes of Shikhar Dhawan, Joe Salisbury, Divij Sharan, and many other stars from various sports.
Thank you, guys.
It's an honor to have you today with us, sir.
Thank you. I'm excited to be part of the show. And firstly, before we go further, I would like to thank Madhav and Anish and all the guys for doing for putting this together. And amidst all the work and that you guys will have, and to do this, it's great, and I'm looking forward to this. Thank you.
So, sir, I guess we can begin with a question that's popping up in everybody's mind. How has the journey been since NIT Trichy to the platform that you are at right now?
Mm-hmm. It started off. I mean, cricket and tennis have been part of our systems right from the beginning. At least there's always a crazy gene inside your head, which I kind of kept nurturing, right from the beginning, like right from school days onwards. And then engineering was just like, it actually started off with a loss in tennis, and where I was up by 1 in a match, and then I lost from that scenario, and I was thinking, like, how did I lose that? And then I was thinking it was a personality-based issue. But then from there, I started reading about psychology, how psychology plays a role, and that's when my interest started creeping in, and how much psychology and performance are related. And and it's been a fascinating journey. So I kept that gene burning, and and that's been the key for to maintain that level of craziness, or just kind of keeping it at the back of the mind. So subconsciously, I kept working on that part. And so far, the journey has been amazing. And I never in my thought that I would have a career in this part, but just the passion for psychology and and performance, and wanting to help athletes in breaking the cobwebs of doubts and reach full potential. So it's been, I think, the purpose driven with a little bit of craziness, and so that's how we achieve that.
Absolutely true, sir. I think that's wonderful. That's really great. And how important is mental health in sports, sir? Because it seems to be a pretty big factor in counseling sessions, right, to improve their games. So how big a factor is it?
Yeah, it's a very significant part, right? Especially, I hate to say that the pandemic has also, when we first started, when the pandemic actually happened, nobody thought it was going to last this long. So people were like, okay, this is like any other thing, and we'll be going through it. But once this became beyond 3 months, 4 months, players started feeling the heat of it, because many of them are in the prime of their careers, and they want to be out there and performing, and instead they're stuck. So earlier, mental part was, and it's there, and we would take it as part of training. But it became a bigger significance, especially now. And moving forward, mental health is going to be one of the top things that we will be addressing, because it has opened up a can of worms, which has nothing to do with how physically strong you are or your skills. I think it's just more about what you feel about yourself, and what does when everything that you took for granted gets taken out, then how are you going to face such issues? And I think that's where mental health comes into the picture. Initially from a survival mode, but then from performance, and so now it's like it's probably the most important thing right now,
So, sir, just a following question: that has your approach changed since the onset of the pandemic?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because it's new for everybody, right? So nobody expected that. So even when you say, we normally would talk a lot about performance, right? And then then the emphasis came into how are you going to bring that acceptance. Now that we brought the acceptance part into your game, how are we going to take this forward? Because there are no matches going on. You can't be outside. How can you self-motivate? You have to be in isolation. But so even from that, so I had to like first, adjust myself, get myself into that frame. Because if I, as a psychologist, have a challenge, then the players are definitely going to have a challenge about it. So I needed to make sure that I am in the right state. So that was a lot of work on my end. And then based on, and a lot of trial and errors about how I'm going to face certain issues. And then took it down to the players. And then that way players will have more questions, So, and we, considering the first 3 months and where we are right now, I think the players have come a long way. And I think in fact, it helps them reset in the best possible way, because there's no action going on. And so everybody comes down to zero. So when everybody is at zero, that's the time for you to like reset your, how your mind thinks for excellence. And, and then I think it's just helped them. I would say you never get an opportunity like this to reset and plan, because sportsmen's careers are very small, right? So, and I think it has worked out. It's worked out tremendously. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, just a question regarding career in sports, sir. Like the sentiment amongst Indians is that the only career option they have is as a sportsman, right? They don't see it past that, whether it be sports marketing, coaching, psychology, data analysts. There are multiple fields in sports, right? So, like, is sports just limited to being a sportsman, or?
So see, that's what the things have changed. It's not like the 90s anymore. So you have a lot of opportunities. You see, for example, we use a lot of data analytics for our to evaluate our players. So we look at stats like that on that front. So everything is like if you look at data analysis, sports psychology, nutrition, this is like a sports science, of course, clinical psychology, educational psychology, bunch of fields inside are all interconnected at the end of it. So and each one has become sports become so specialized now. It's not just isolated to one. I mean, look at somebody like Virat Kohli. 10 years ago he was in a completely different state. Now he's he's like a beast out there. Not just from the physical standpoint, from a mental standpoint, everything. So how does that all come together? So players individually take all these things and to get to that level, but so the people involved in providing that knowledge to the players, it's become super significant. Data analysis is like along with psychology, along with mental conditioning and neural, anything on the neural side, nutrition side. These are highly, highly important now, because because it's all coming down to like satisfy the goal of a player to become the best that he can be. And so each of these specialized fields are very important. And also, like, I don't interfere with what a nutritionist says. Nutrition doesn't interfere with what I do. It's just that they all work together, but without stepping on each other's toes on that. So very important piece. Yeah.
There's the right balance.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are, like, if you look at the options that you have for people these days to learn, it is just that there's so much stuff on the internet also. So you got to like stay a little bit away from all those and kind of get hardcore into what it really takes. That's one challenge that we are going through. Is there's so many experts outside, some of them, and where they give their opinions, but then so people take that as, oh, this is the thing. So it's important for people who are interested in this to like dig deep, understand why they want to do it. And right now, I'll tell you, India is booming. You see sports taking such a big leap, and over the next 10 years, now is the time to think outside the box and literally pursue your passion. So I'm definitely sure that you'll see a lot more success now than what it was before.
True. So, sir, does your approach change from player to player, or like how does mental strength work? Does everybody start off with the same amount of mental strength? Does it come with practice? So, how do you imbibe that characteristic in sportsmen?
Okay, it starts off everyone has their own, like it's like like everybody is like a thumbprint, right? Each thumbprint is different, so each one has their strengths and weaknesses. The first thing is the myth that I try to break is, when I say, oh, this is my personality, I am like that. So that's the thing that I challenge the most, because you become a certain way based on your life experiences. Nobody is born, like talent. Each one is born with different talents. skills and all that, but hard work and kind of mental excellence is something that we all can develop in whatever way. Staying true to your personality, you can do that. But that's my first thing is to like, if I see a player like doing so well in practice and then but struggling in key moments, or what are the things that are going through his head, and how we can make practice as intense as possible. That way they can, when they are out there, it's like it's like taking in college you have your model exams and your finals. We take the model exams the same seriousness of how we take the and then if we can match that, then automatically you are ready for success, right? So each one starts different. Like I said, players do start different, but my goal is basically to ensure that I work on removing the whatever doubts and cobbles we have, and that's something that I take a lot of pride in when I work with the players.
So, sir, when someone takes up a career in sports, is it necessary for them to keep a backup option or a side occupation, like apart from their career in sports?
That's a chicken and egg question, right? So it's one of those things where you, as a player, or even if you want to pursue it, there's like, okay, I need to be safe, because it's still a very unique profession. So you need to have your, so that you're not like losing out. But again, it's how you approach education. Like if you look at engineering and then later I pursue, it's how you take up the knowledge that you gain there. If you're just studying it so that I have a backup and all that, it's just that this requires a lot of passion. You got to have a lot of be willing to like put yourself on the line. So there is a lot of internal work as a person that you got to do and face, and and honestly, if that's your priority, you want to go 100% on that. But use education. Like you have a lot of players like James Blake or somebody they are all Harvard grads, but at the same time they pursue tennis as a sportsman. And so they always believe it helps their game because it helps you to think more objective. So I would say education or your emphasis right now on engineering is actually going to be helpful. It's just how you're going to like balance that time. You can't do 40 hours on this and 40 hours on that. So you got to like find that right balance. For me, it was the 80-20 rule. And my dad challenged me like, okay, you got 2 years to figure this out. So, and I think that really puts a little bit of a good kind of pressure on you to succeed. But then if your passion is where it needs to be, and eventually you will know, you will get to a state where, okay, I'm ready to drop this and move forward. So till then, you got to like keep pushing. So yeah, stay crazy. I mean, have that crazy. Don't kind of like, okay, now that I got a backup, I'm going to go. I see players I've seen a lot of good tennis players leave out their careers like that. But I would just say keep the passion right. Now is the time.
True. So we've seen a lot of sportsmen later coming on in life to like pursue a career in sports, whether it be marketing, psychology. So is it really important for someone to have a really good playing career for him to take up a career in sports?
Not necessarily. Coaching is it's like the cliche that all players need not be good coaches, or all great coaches need not be great players. There's so many who are like that, and because it's the amount of knowledge. Like so many commentators I see nowadays who have the knowledge of the game is amazing, and they can be excellent coaches, but they may not have played the game at the highest level. But the knowledge is immense. So it comes down to how you want to learn about. It's like how you learn about the game, and if you touch some key points, then you can definitely be a great coach. And of course and you see players who are excellent players struggle as coaches. You see that even in the current area, so in tennis or in cricket. So because it's hard, like as a player, you've gone through everything, and then if you're such a big success, then you might be thinking, why is this so hard for these guys? But that's just a different mindset. But then you have coaches who come in and pick up. Yeah. So it's it just comes down to what is your strength. In mine, I always believe that there's that I have the skill set in me to awaken, to help in creating the potential, enjoying the performance of players, but at the same time helping them in removing the cobwebs of doubt. And so that was something that my strength was there. So it was then after that, once that was clear, then it was like, okay, what are things I need to do? And so I think once that is clear, I guess it's a question of having that belief in yourself. And yeah.
Sir, how is coaching someone like Shikhar Dhawan been?
Oh, he's one of those classiest guys that you can come across. Very, very relaxed guy. I mean, to be honest, and doesn't worry too much about what happens. The outcome doesn't matter to him. I mean, really, to be honest, he doesn't really worry too much about the outcome. It's all about the state that he has to be in for a match, like whether he's in the side or outside the side, and considering, all the, there's so much competition, to have that attitude is pretty phenomenal. And that has been one of the biggest reasons for success. Very open, very punctual, very ready to do whatever is asked of him, and very intelligent from just how he approaches the game, wants to create an impact in sport. And there are a lot of questions that people ask about his technique and all of. There's always something on him, but he's so mentally tough that now that he doesn't get affected much by what is being told of him, and he just like very immune to it. So it has been so much fun working with him. So great guy.
Wow. So, sir, if someone is to pursue a career in sports, like how mentally prepared should they be, like to face the setbacks, which they'll face on this journey? What is the level of mental preparation that they need?
Oh, it's there is a lot of for them to pursue this. It requires a clarity about what you want to do. That's the thing. For me, for my example, that way kind of maybe people can get some insights on that. But for me, it was that particular once I experienced that loss, and then when that loss actually happened, like why was it hurting? What was the reason? Why did I choke from a certain scenario? There was nothing exceptional that the other player did. So I started looking at it from, okay, it was just that, okay, I was thinking too ahead, thinking too much into the future. So that was the first thought, right? So why am I thinking about what's going to happen, And from there, it was like, okay, let's start breaking it down one at a time. And that's when I saw like, okay, if I had, you don't eat a big elephant like in one go. You just go in small phases. So I just thought like, okay, if I break it down, this will be good. But then I didn't know what those details are. And that's where I started looking at it. Okay, I got into meditation. I got a lot into affirmations, NLP, a lot of these things. I started working on those, but firstly by myself. Then once I got trained in these areas, then that's when I started to see the benefits. Okay, this can benefit me at this stage. How much can it impact, help others, And so in a way, like once the raw materials inside me were like ready to roll, and you felt like, okay, this is the message that I need to give to the other players that I end up working with. So I think that made a huge difference. So yeah, you've got to be prepared, because opportunity, you never know when it strikes. So you got to be ready to roll when it strikes. And so that's why every day was important for me to work on this aspect, not just from an education standpoint, but also from my own standpoint, and then ensuring that I am ready to take on whatever is thrown up. So yeah, it is a lot of work, but I would always say the harder you work in isolation and in practice, you will be ready for bigger challenges. So yeah.
So currently the scenario is that students prefer to travel abroad to pursue their degree in sports. How good are Indian colleges in this regard?
Yeah, there are a lot of highly qualified sports psychologists in India, and many of them have pursued their in Bangalore or their universities up even in Punjab and all that. There are a lot of guys who are see, like I said, the message is going to be the same. Like if you look at Association of Sports Psychology, the message is pretty much just the same. It's how they're going to process that information. The thing here in the US or in Europe, psychology has been an integral part of the system for a longer time, and it's not a taboo in terms of mental conditioning. It's not a like, we have a thing sometimes. It's like, oh, I'm not. We have a challenge in saying that I'm weak mentally, a little bit weak. I need to work on this. They're okay with saying, oh, my physical muscles are not as strong, but they don't want to accept, okay, the mental part is a weakness, So that taboo has been destroyed a lot here, a lot more in the US, because of the fact that psychology has been part of Navy SEALs training, and a lot of, in terms of how Army officers are training. So it's like it has been even beyond sport. So from that end, it is, the exposure here is greater, because of the impact details, and sports. It's there in every sporting system here. So I guess that's improving a lot in India too. Now it's like you see a lot of seminars on this aspect of the game. People are taking it seriously, and you also see Indian top athletes talk about it, about the importance of mental health. So once that demand from that player is like, he's willing to come out and say, I need to work on this, automatically, like demand creates the necessity for you to pursue it. And I see so many people taking up sport and colleges. Yes, quality wise, I wouldn't put too much emphasis on the college. I'll get the basics, whatever I can out of it. But it's just that where you want to go with it. And I think the college work is what they give you, the exposure is about 20 to 30%. The rest 70% has to come from you. And I think, that's the hardest part. So once you are ready on that front, then I guess you can pretty much take it forward.
Yeah, and plus a lot of opportunities are coming up as well.
Oh yeah, there is huge. Like if you look at it in sport, I mean, every aspect, there's just so much more, opportunities nowadays. So I'm excited. Yeah.
Definitely, sir. So, sir, like you were working in the software field, and then you proceeded to pursue a career in psychology. So, like as a mental conditioning and high performance coach. So, what made you make that decision? What was the turning point?
I mean, there are a lot of turning points. So, but I would say it is like I said, once you are doing this, so you always have that at the back. Like I said earlier, that you have it in the back of your mind, and so you are working on this. You're bringing some aspects into your work. You're seeing how it applies to, even as I did the project management work, so how it applies to your field itself, the soft skills that you have to use with fellow colleagues and all that. So these were things that you were doing, and then we always had some sort of sporting activities that we will do just to make sure that I try to ensure that even I follow the 80-20 rule, that I spend some time on it on an everyday basis, and so that I don't like lose touch or get lost in my own area. So I was doing a little bit of that, and then once we started seeing, again, results play a big role, but once you start seeing players actually, there are a few successes that are coming a long way, and they are doing those specific things, and you start, the confidence in yourself builds also as you see the result. And then a couple of huge successes like that came through, and then all of that, I was like 50% leaning on towards it. So there are multiple turning points. I guess the key remained is like, once the player shows that belief and is ready to do what was needed, I at that point was like, I had like few very key points like that happened. And at that stage, it's like when I decided that, okay, mentally I decided like this is where I want to be. And after that, it was just a question of, it's not like a 2 weeks notice and then, okay, I'm waiting. No, but it's just that it automatically falls off by itself. And I still carry whatever I learned in the software field to my work. And it's, having that knowledge of technology, and it's been immensely helpful because I can talk that language with my, so which actually, in a way, when they give me a budget, I can pretty much say, hey, that's just too much. Yeah. So you need to make sure that they keep it in sync. So on that front, it definitely helps. So yeah, but there are multiple. You can't. This is not one particular turning point. There are multiple. So yeah,
makes sense. Sir, how differently do you advise a player after a win and after a loss?
After a loss, you don't talk for a day, couple of days maybe, because the emotions are very high. Emotions are very high at that point. It's tough. It's just recovery standpoint. we try to keep it when you're winning. There's really learning when you're winning is that's not too much. It's just more to okay, just continue this, continue that. Look at the things that we try to keep the focus on the process as much as possible. Try to think about what are the things that the player has done well. That way, the win doesn't get to their head because the guy that they're competing against is also working on their mental aspect. So it's going to be, it's not like, okay, I outplayed him. And so it's going to continue. And so it's just that keeping the mind on what are the process stuff that worked. And if that's and just keep focusing on that. That way they don't lose track. But when they're losing, we just give them another couple of days to kind of think through and all that. And then the players' emotions slow down a little bit, and that's when some guys can just go right away. But ideally, I would give them like 24 to 48 hours to kind of recover from a loss. And then we looked at the things that work and things that don't work. It's pretty much the same. But to be honest, the people when they lose, there's a lot more opportunity to learn than when you actually win. So I like I'm not saying that I like the losing part, but just that it forces the player to work on various aspects. Yeah. So.
And as like they commonly say, it's really tough to stay at the top of your game. Like it's tougher to stay at the top of your game for a very long while.
Yeah, absolutely. It's that's why it's like if you look at guys like Federer and like Sachin or Virat, what they've achieved over the career, it's pretty phenomenal in terms of their what they have done. So I would say like but that's what it means, that how much process focus those players must be to just stay at the level. And even for them, even the slightest dip, people are going to say, oh, they've gone down. So it's not easy, but it clearly shows that they are like very process driven individuals. So I think the highest guys are like that.
So do you feel that the world of sports is prepared for another event like COVID-19? Because everything has changed, fans are staying at home and watching games. So do you feel that when another event like COVID-19 happens, the field of sports won't get affected at all? It will continue how it's always been?
No, the whole approach has changed, right? So we don't know if the Tokyo Olympics are going to happen. We don't know what's all that stuff. But I guess the last 1 year, and see, they were successfully the US Open was conducted. You have the IPL went through. You have the big events that of course not with the crowd and everything, but people are finding ways to navigate through this the intense pandemic that has been. And so, yeah, they'll definitely be better prepared. I hope there's never another COVID 20 or 21 or whatever. We hope we don't have those things. But the fact is, like, I guess the people are much better prepared now. They know, especially the organizers, and so they are much more prepared. And I think the world also knows how to. It's the first one that's the hardest. And so I hope we don't have this again. But even this whole journey, probably it's going to take another year before everything comes back to normal, but I think we will definitely be much better prepared for sure.
Definitely, sir. And like athletes have been away from the field for so long, do you think it affects their game or the level of preparation coming into a major tournament, like suppose the US Open or, as you said, the Tokyo Olympics?
Yeah, it is. It's a challenge. There's no doubt. It's because they have to be working on all these aspects, right? So it's like they got to be prepared, learn to be in isolation, learn to the quarantine is a big challenge. So how because what's, like I said, what's taken for granted is taken out. So you have to maintain those protocols. So your mental state during these times are very, very important, especially athletes who spend a lot of time meditating. They spend a lot of time in doing whatever workouts they can within their confines of the room, spend a lot of time on affirmations, keeping themselves in high spirits, talking to other people, and all these things are very important. And so and that's the best you can do. It's not, let me tell you, people who are extroverted and do a lot of things, it's not easy for them. But we, now like the first 3 months were a big challenge. Now guys are more know exactly what to do, how to do this. It's just that getting them into that routine and staying to, and whatever doubts and challenges they have or whatever feelings they go through, they went it out so that it's not something that they hold on to. Sure. And I think. And so there's no filters about it, and I think that has really helped. So. Yeah.
Sure. Yes, sir. And sir, have you felt that the pandemic has affected the game a lot? Do you think the levels of performances are going to be the same at the Olympics?
Yeah, I mean,
As
see, look at the events. Like players are driven from within. They want to go out there and win. Of course, the crowds and all that make a big difference. But I think most of the high level, high quality players are always driven to win. They want to win the gold. They want to be the best they can be in the Grand Slams, right? So they want to win a slam. So yes, the crowd. When the crowd's not there, it is a challenge. But other than that, it's been kind of like they're working hard on that part of their game, and they ensure that they're from their side of things that that they are doing everything that they can to prepare and train, and that's all. That's the best that they can do, and it has made them more driven. Even some players who are not even at the highest level, but they play a lot during the weekends and all that. Even for them, it's like they are more driven than what they were. So and suddenly it's like a new person in them waking up. And so there are a lot of friends of mine who kind of have gone through that, and they come up stronger as players. These are not players even at the highest level. So, but it's just the passion has gone up. So I would expect, really, because there'll be some great performances for sure. Provided, hoping that all the Olympics and the other events happen without major issues.
Definitely, sir. So, what's the biggest challenge you faced while pursuing a career in sports, in your opinion?
Biggest challenge is making it. So that's that's probably the ultimate, because if you because that's why you're there in it. Like, you want to succeed, right? You want to work with the athletes of the highest level. You want to make a difference, and so and that's the thing. And then of course earning the trust of the players. That's so you got to put yourself on the line. You got to be ready that, okay, if this is not going to work in 6 months, that you're prepared for that exit also. You got to be prepared and ready for the exit strategy also. That way which kind of, once you're prepared in that fashion, you are going to be total in what you do, so that whatever happens. And I think that once, okay, what's the worst that can happen, And so once I'm comfortable with that, then it gives me the energy to go all out. But if I'm not comfortable, that's when you're like trying to safeguard things, and typically you won't give your best. So for me, that was the, I would say that's been, like, from a bigger picture, that's the thing. And also, like, there are some players who are like very adamant about their personalities, adamant about, oh, I can't do this, and they have a million reasons to. So breaking that chain is the hardest, and so, but you keep plowing through. That's the ultimate challenge, is to help a player who has loads of doubts. Yeah.
So, sir, like, you've coached a lot of high-profile players as well, right? Have you seen a difference in mentality of players who don't make it to the highest level, or like genuinely people who don't make it to the highest levels in careers? Is there a change in mentality over there?
Hard to say, because sometimes you have the most hardworking players, but skill and talent. Nevertheless, skill and talent are one of the most are the important aspects. Physical part is like, some of them have great mental strength, but they might have a challenge on their physical strength, And so they work really hard out there, but then there's also the challenge of they're not able to succeed. It's not because they are they're limited. They're just limited maybe from a physical perspective. They may be limited from a talent perspective. So there are players I definitely know who are ready to throw everything on the line, and they do their best. It's not, but the lesson that there are many players like that who end up becoming great coaches, because they are able to say, I was not as talented as you, but based on my mental work ethic, I was able to, and that's the knowledge that they can imbibe. You've seen so many players who were kind of top 100 or something, but they never reached the pinnacle of their careers, but ended up becoming great coaches, because what they would say is, okay, if I'm able to impart the mental part, or the importance of work ethic, and then if I'm like even 60 to 70% talented, then that can make up. There's so many great average players from the high level, but they were became great coaches. And there's so many to name by that, So yeah.
Definitely, because I believe that it's tough to keep the level of motivation as well. That's the important factor.
Oh yeah,
there.
it is because that's what you got to be. There's so many players I know who have been injured for many years, and then they come back and they get a surgery again, and so it's like, and it's, see, as much as coaches we can help out, it's very hard on the players because and it shows their toughness about how much they want it, and but they are willing to do whatever it takes, and then until the last breath, and then they see if they can, if they make it, it's great. If they don't, it's still that it's a lesson for younger athletes. Like, okay, look at this guy was able to pursue despite all these issues that he had. It's like at least you can impart that lesson to them. Yeah.
True. So one final question. What would be your advice to the people of NIT Trichy who are willing to pursue a career in sports?
There's lots. I would just say, like I said in the beginning, keep that crazy gene in you alive. Look at what is why you want to pursue it, and I think that's the key. Is it's okay to have those dreams, but it's important to know why you have it. Why do you want it? And if that is clear, then nothing else matters. So just keep that gene alive. Look at what you guys are doing. It's a great example because you have so much stuff going, but you're able to pick up alumni from and then look up what they're doing, and that takes a lot of heart, and and just keep that fire in you alive, and once that is clear, you can achieve anything on that front. Yeah.
Sir, is that the secret to keep performing at your peak as well?
Sorry, could you say it again? I lost you there.
Yeah, is that the secret to keep performing at your peak as well?
Oh yeah, absolutely. You have to at that, and I think that's going to be the key for us is to ensure that we don't, we have to keep our mindset at the highest level as much as possible. And I think because it will serve you good, and you never know when that success is going to come in. There are so many players who are on the verge of giving up, and they decide to do it one more time, and at that things can change in that. That's the nature of sport. So just don't quit. That's the key.
Sir, are athletes looking more to fine tune their game nowadays? As compared to the 90s, I barely know the coaches that were there back then, but now it's a bigger part of the game. I feel that a coach's name is more prominent in the press, in the media, right? Mm-hmm. So it's a very big factor in the game, who your coaches are. So has the game evolved in that sense?
Oh yeah, I mean the game has evolved. I mean it's about nowadays. It's a lot more about the substance that the coach provides. As to what he brings to the table. Like there are so many coaches even in cricket where they might not have achieved too much at their highest level, but they would be the information that they have and the knowledge that they share is of the highest quality you can think of, and vice versa also. They could be really high prominent coaches, but they are high prominent players, but they need not be necessarily great coaches because it's coaching is a completely different way of teaching your players, right? Because that's why the cliche is all players cannot be great coaches, and the other way also, So it's important to, it's just that what kind of knowledge they provide. What is that one little thing? If you look at somebody like, say, Dinesh Karthik or someone who was like highly, used to be very bubbly and very energetic kind of player, but then the last 3-4 years he worked with Abhishek Nair, who didn't played at the level, but didn't play at the highest level. But the knowledge that he imparted him, and then Dinesh became such a big match winner. So it's those nuances, and it's very subtle changes, right? So and to work hard on those subtle changes. And how did Abhishek know? It's based on his experience with the game and how he's going to impart that knowledge to a certain player. And I think that makes a big difference. Those little things. And if the players are willing to work highly intensely on that, and I think that can help them in achieving that success. Yeah, and coaches play a big role. Majority of the successful coaches don't do 100 different things. They just do 2 or 3 things really, really well. So I think that's the key. Yep.
Sir, is the level of competitiveness also different, or is it the same?
Oh yeah, it's level of competitors now is like at a new, in terms of qualitatively, yes, it's high. It's really high now. And so as a because it's no longer just the skill side, right? It's the physical, the mental part, everything coming into picture. So it's not like what it used to be. There are certain teams that did it in the early 90s like that, but now you have now the competition is just it's a pretty level playing field, and so all these little things make a big difference, you know.
Sure, sir. Yeah. Sure, sir. It was a pleasure talking to you. It was an honor talking to you. It brings us to the end of the event.
Thanks a lot. I love being part of this, and really good questions, Madhav and team, and you guys have done a fantastic job. And looking forward to do more of these and share some more, because I think it's hard to encompass all this in one little go. So yeah.
Yes, sir. So before we wrap up, we have a couple of questions from the audience, which you can take up. So so there's a question from Ahmed Hassan. What is the transition like from a technical institute like NITT to sports psychology, and how do you go about it?
Yeah, and it's like I said, the thing that's there in the back of your mind, right, from the second, third year of my engineering, to pursue this, and that has always been there. So you talk to different. At that time, there was the internet was not a big thing, so I would send out letters and stuff like that to the coaches and players from other universities and stuff. So I kind of sent those things, found some things about what is psychology, how does it work there, and all that. And so that was there. I started educating myself a lot about the mental aspects of the game. A lot of books on psychology I read, which Higginbotham's was my go-to place at that stage. So you did a lot of reading on that. And once that became centralized for you, you understood how that worked. Then after that, it was pretty much once I came to the US and took some classes on that. I figured out how all these things work, and also seeing, I would say my biggest transition thing was the material, what kind of material that I had access to. And I think once that is clear, and then I also got certified in that field. So all these things played a big role, and also having played, the sport also, and it just kind of helps you okay, how I'm going to help a certain player. I would voluntarily go about it and try to say I'm going to help these guys out on the mental conditioning side, and use all the skills that I learned, from my books and all that, and see how I can apply them with them. And so it started off like that, and then before it became more streamlined. So it's been like I said, I would say engineering plays a big role in that, because without that aptitude, you would not be able to succeed here. So it's not like, okay, this is done and that is done. Of course, it's like a caterpillar to butterfly kind of transition, but it's not as easy as I thought it to be. So.
So we have a question from Manikandan. The question is that regarding data analysis in cricket, does it involve a lot of study or a lot of observations?
Yeah, definitely both. So especially data is it's because you have to. It's like you're breaking it down. You should know what you say. For example, if it is in cricket, you're going to say how many shots the guy hits, how many cover drives the guy hits, how many times he's defending, how many times he's leaving, how many times he's coming down the track. Just a bunch of, you got to know the knowledge of the game firstly. Because that's your data is as strong as the knowledge that you have about it. So as much as you have that knowledge about it, then you can break it down. And of course, with all that information encapsulated in you, you'll be able to talk to, and that's how you're going to sound sensible also. So data analysis is such a big field. It all comes down to and it's like combination of everything, but primarily it's that you need to know what it entails. So I would say both.
So we have a question from Mervyn Moses. What would you say is the difference in how sports psychology is used in an individual sport as compared to a team sport?
Yeah, it's pretty much like it's even in a team sport, it's a lot one-on-one. It's a battle of the bowler versus the batsman in say in cricket. In team sports, like individually you work on the player to make sure that he has a team attitude, and that's what you work towards, like, so that it takes the pressure off him how he can contribute. So in a team sport, it's more about emphasizing contribution to the whole for the group, and for the individuals, it is more about from the individual sport, it's just like one-on-one as to what they do. And so there, the pressure is so much because you're the only guy out there. So and so you have to fix problems by yourself. But in a team sport, there is that way. It's even though it's one-on-one, it's also the emphasis of how you are contributing towards the team, and that is considerably less pressure. Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense, sir. So, sir,
So, sir, sir, I think Madhav has some issues. Until he comes back, we can go ahead with the questions.
Okay.
So this question of how much do our players have to prepare for match and practice mentally? Majorly, they're comparing between the physical and the mental aspect.
Yeah, and so it is like there's a lot of work for a player to do, like in terms of their routines, as to how they start the day, and in terms of like if they have a match in the mornings, so they pretty much have to ensure like they are, because you're going to have the nerves, you're going to have the butterflies in your stomach. So obviously you want to like organize your thoughts in a very effective manner. And also like they need to make sure that they are prepared from as far as what their goals are, what they want to accomplish. Be very clear about that. Write down their affirmations and work on their nerves and meditate a lot. During those times, and ensure that they keep themselves positive. A lot of in fact, there's a lot of physical work also to be done, getting themselves ready and warmed up and to go. And I think all the sort of positive energy statements that they can tell themselves. Some of them practice meditation, just kind of getting themselves as to what is the strategy that they need to use against a certain player. All the things that you would do from a mental perspective are pretty much meditation, affirmations to yourself, and then be ready for it. It all comes down to how your practice has been, and making the practice as close as your matches as possible. Then you'll be ready mentally.
Sir, does this create the factor of equality as well in the game? Suppose players who do not have access to the same amount of resources, and on the other hand, players who do have access to a lot of resources?
Yeah, there is. Yeah, that's a gap that we have to address at some point, because many a time it is just not the talent, right? It's just the exposure that they have. Like mental conditioning, like 20 years ago would have been like, I've seen so many players who are so good in our era, but didn't have the access to all the resources. And so but now I think the world's become more global, and so you pretty much have access to the information. You see how many players are coming from our part of the world, and they train in the best facilities in Florida, so it's like now the access levels are high. But still, there's still a lot more work to be done in terms of quality and terms of exposure. Yeah, absolutely.
So, sir, there's a question from AD. Turbo AD, yeah. Do you think people are embracing the mental quotient more? How does sports psychology relate to elements in life?
Oh, it is life. So basically, yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's a great question because they are embracing it right now. You see, even as the players from Australia, players Virat spoke about it. A lot of players are talking about the importance of mental health and importance of how, and Dhoni has spoken about it too. So there's all these guys have realized that have known for long. Now it is becoming, people are opening up. And so I think it is, and they're using it as a mental muscle, not as a psychiatric issue or something. So, yeah, I mean, as far as how does sports psychology relate to elements in life, it is, because I go from not only just training the athletes, we also are working with executive coaches and stuff, people in high positions also, and for them to embrace like things like focus and dedication to the sport, it's pretty much the same, like bringing that purpose into your life as well. So the terminology might change, but the essence still remains the same. So it pretty much applies. Though my emphasis has been on sport and the clinical, the knowledge that we share, it applies to life equally. So yeah.
So, recreational players and like professionals in high stress situations, can they also benefit from sports psychology?
Could you say that again? Sorry.
Yeah. So recreational players and like people in high pressure situations, can they also benefit from sports psychology or mental conditioning?
Oh yeah, absolutely. They can, because again, it's going to be helpful for your life anyways, right? So from that front, it is. It gives you like a motivation behind, okay, this guy is able to do it in sport and probably the highest stress that he's going through, and look at mine is a challenge, but nothing compared to what that person is going through. Look at handicapped players, how well they succeed, or blind players who go through and are achieving at the highest level, right? So you see that, so you can use that as inspiration, and definitely, and it'll because it just gives you perspective. So what would be like, oh, this is a life and death situation for me, suddenly becomes like a nothing compared to what another player is going through. So you're like, okay, you too can learn from that. Yeah,
makes sense, sir. Makes sense. How can you stay at the top of your game playing your best under pressure, particularly in the sport of tennis?
You got to train for it. You got to stimulate. You got to stimulate situations, get as close as possible to match. Like how that is, and that way, when you are trained, like on that level, making it as intense. Your practices should be very, very hard, complex, and you should probably, in a way, hate practice because you're going to be feeling under a lot of pressure there. So once you do that, then you truly are ready, to be at, to perform at that highest level. So it all comes down to how hard you practice it.
So how do your players respond after a loss or an injury? So when they go into a next tournament, how is their mindset? Is it different or is it the same? Especially with respect to an injury, I feel that somehow it's in the back of your mind. Like right after you bounce back from an injury, does it affect the mental game a lot?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's that's why, because the first thing is like they don't want to get injured again, so they want to make sure that so that worry is obviously going to be there. Like again, responding to a loss, you have to firstly acknowledge the feelings that you have. Like, okay, I've gone through this, but I need to kind of and move on. So obviously, how early they get into accepting a loss and then learning from it. And then making sure that it's like to kind of ensure that they train on those things that didn't work, and from there they can, once they go into the next tournament, they have that like the experience of either as to based on what happened, and so they can kind of go in with a new kind of vision. But it's so mindset has to change for sure. It's important to have the right mindset, because tennis, even if it is 128 players playing the sport. In a tournament, there's only one winner, so there are 127 people losing. Sure. so you need to carry that. So it's like you got to be positive, and then go into it. Yep.
Definitely, sir. Next up, we have a question from Prasanna. With a lot of new talents coming up in every sport, what would be your guidance to the potentials when they transition to a bigger league?
What would be your guidance to the? Okay, I think so. The first step is like like the way we evaluate players is going to be key. Like players get evaluated based on sometimes by the talent, right? And so that's so we have to make sure that say in cricket, you see, is this guy going to be good for say T20, or is this guy going to be good for Test cricket? This guy's going to be good for ODI. Like you want to look at the bigger picture. I think if the evaluation has to be updated more, not just on talent, it's also about how scalable the player can become. So I would say for them to transition into the bigger league, it comes down to just if evaluated and then guided by the right people, then we can say, look at somebody like Rahul Dravid is doing a fantastic job with all the junior players, and if he says that this guy is good, people are going to listen, because he just doesn't evaluate based on skill set. He evaluates based on discipline, work ethic, discipline, all that stuff. So I think though if we can make the evaluation criteria even more critical, I think we'll be able to answer many of the questions about whether a player is going to make it. There's so many players, more talented than even some of them, and they didn't even play for the country. But the fact is, it comes down to how scalable their games are, both their physical and mental.
And sir, over here, just a point, like players who've been playing for a very long time have also found ways to maintain their levels, right? For example, especially in tennis, if you see Nadal, Federer, Djokovic, they're still at the top of the game.
Yeah, which is a classic case of somebody who these are highly exceptional. Like these guys they are still performing at the highest level. And they're still not letting to the shifting of guard, they say, and every time somebody says that, they're ready to bounce back. So I think it's just they're driven from within and how much they want it, and they're so addicted to the winning, to be the best. And look at Federer at 40 is still playing amazing, and all these guys are just playing it's unbelievable. And I don't know if we'll ever see that like that again. But it shows that along with your talent, it's the work ethic and how much you want it that matters.
So there's a question by Madhumita Datta. How would you advise a parent of a kid who has shown clear talent in sports at an early age? There's another question. How would a family balance the kid's education and sports as a career?
I think great question, Mita. So I think the key is to at a young age, it's to when there's good talent that you see at them, it's to nurture them, give them more exposure, and that's the thing. They need more encouragement, nurturing. It's like watering a plant, giving them that necessary seeds and to excel. Again, it comes down to the interest. Like as long as as parents, you would always want you want your kids to have a great life, and so obviously you want to support what they want to do. And I think once the kids are given that support, they automatically take up to support. My parents are supporting me this much, and so they also take on the education part very seriously. But as long as it's not forced on them, it's good. It's just a question of balancing, nurturing their talent, and at the same time ensuring that you're not forcing anything on them.
Sure. And do you think grassroots level initiatives also will go a long way in promoting parents to encourage their children to take up sports?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Now, if there was a lot of schemes like Marks for Sports and a lot of things that have been coming up in the last 4-5 years. And I think it's like I said, we are a country of over 1 billion people, so we should be able to produce. So I think, but now with now, I feel it's opened up so many avenues. You see so many players from different rural places coming up. So I think sports definitely picking up, and it's just just integrate that into schools. That's something that we can take from the US, where the sports are highly encouraged right from the beginning. So I would say if we can bring more of that, and I think I don't see any reason as to why we can't. And I think now it's the time.
So there's another question. How do your players talk to you after a match, and how would you talk to them to get ready for the next tournament?
We wait for a day, like I said. We don't at least, and then I think once you take that take a breather, and then again, because when the emotions are high, it's very tough for them to be rational. So and so obviously the sadness part takes over and all that. So sometimes it's good to let it out, but ideally, as painful as it is, to let them kind of like settle down, and then we talk about it a day later. So and that's when they are in a more receptive state. Because in an emotional state, nobody is receptive. So yeah.
So what are your views on the effects of sledging and banter during the game and outside the game, especially in sports like MMA, cricket?
Yeah. I mean, in MMA, I've seen it's pretty intense, because they are ready to fight. Even
Pretty
they
intense,
are ready
yeah.
to fight. They are ready to fight even in the press conference. So I think that's the nature of that sport. It's like it's pretty bloody, right? So it's like it's not
Yeah.
it's not a fun sport to be on that front. But sledging is, again, it's just like sledging is just to test you. Like, again, it tests up your mental strength. Like, there's some players like Virat and Sachin, people who not sledge much because they get even more focused. So for them, sledging actually helps them. I mean, if somebody's going to sledge them, they're going to be like ready to perform. So it's like it's good as long as you can sense a mental weakness in a player, that he's ready to. He's going to be like out of his. If I sledge him, he's going to like lose his concentration. Then yeah. So it's just I think it's just the way you, as a player, you should look at it. Okay, this guy is testing my focus level. So, and I think it's good for you. Yep.
Sir, how easy is it for you to judge if an athlete is going through a burnout or like he's suffering from fatigue? Does it affect his mental strength? Yeah. How?
Could you say that?
How?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. So, how easy is it for you to judge whether a player is going through a burnout or is suffering from fatigue? Like, does it affect his mental strength a lot?
Well, yeah, I mean, like typically during a burnout phase, when you are like going through, like you are, you play a lot of cricket, a lot of tennis. So you could see that firstly their performance, they don't play well. The performance gets affected immensely, and you want the player to be ready to be out there. So and burnouts are very common nowadays because of the number of tournaments happening. People are get tired, and then they get it, and it does affect their performance big time. And that's the last thing you want. You want a player out there ready to go and not be like, okay, just going through the motions. So it does have an impact big time. So during burn, we typically let them to take a break so that they can recharge their batteries and come back strong. Yeah.
So what, according to you, is the best time to train in a day?
I think the mornings. Mornings are the best, because that's when your thoughts are like you're in a much more receptive state before your coffee. So and then you can, that's probably all you want to start.
Yeah. So what are the criteria that universities are looking at when they like hire a professional, or when they like give admission to a student pursuing a career in sports?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's the SOP plays a big role. Like what your statement of purpose that you and again why you want it. Of course, your scores matter. Your GRE or GMAT or TOEFL or whatever, all those things matter. I think it's going to also, if you're going to pursue in sport, like obviously you should have done something in sport. Like, what is your extracurricular stuff that you've done? How is your how you performed and all those things. Those things do play a role. I think for the topmost universities, it's just it's just what your scores and how your your statement of purpose plays a big role. Yep.
So we have another question, sir. Like people say, begin with the end in mind. But in sports, it's very important that you live in the moment. So how do you balance both these things?
Great question, actually. So obviously, the key is to we all play out there to win, or become the best in okay, I got to beat this guy. So that's got to be clear. It's just that okay, and once that is clear, then and you are pushing towards that, it's important to and once that's clear, it's like you got to get it out of your mind. The outcome is clear, you want to win. Then after that, it's just pretty much of breaking it down to what you're going to do in the moment. And so so winning, once you're in the point starts, you got to think about just the problem. And until then, you can think about anything else. You have your dreams, everything, but don't do it right like the guys, when they think about, even if they are like serving up match point and they are thinking about the end point, they start doing some weird stuff. You've seen that even with the greats of Federer who have kind of choked from big situations. And so it happens to many people. It's not like, so nobody is an exception there, but just stick with the process. And let's put it this way, to answer his question is, let's make process your end result.
Sir, how does the psychology factor change when you're talking to players in a doubles team? So suppose you're training Joe Salisbury. What is your advice to the first player? What is your advice to the second player?
Yeah, it's okay. Good question. So the first player has to, especially somebody like would be to, is to keep him. It's as much as it's like two. It's just like one-on-one, right? So we need to make sure that he has the right kind of motivation, right kind of strategy, and also know when to say what. When to fire yourself up, when to fire your partner up, when to kind of stay quiet, when to literally, like, the guy is being a bit not intense at that moment, then how is he going to talk to them? So all these things come to is to like you learn as you go through it. It's not something that we have a preset plan for it, but as long as the player himself knows the stuff that he has to work on, and then he knows exactly what to do when. So.
Sir, there's a question from Anirudh. For an average individual, what advices would you give with respect to improving physical and mental fitness during these times?
It's a great question. The first thing is that the thought that you looked at to improve your physical, and that itself is like the first thing. You have that already. Mm-hmm. I would just say read up on a few things, like what are those things entail? What do you want to accomplish on the physical side? Whether some guys want to be, I want to be lean, I want to be, I want to look like a beast. Whatever you decide to do on the physical front, definitely be clear about that. As far as the mental fitness is like, yoga or meditation helps you a lot. Taking up even Tai Chi or, routines, different forms of routines can also help you in having a good mental regimen. Practicing, I think meditation is perhaps the best thing that you can think of. And affirmations, learning about NLP, these are things that you can work on, during these times for sure.
Definitely, sir. Sir, is sports psychology a factor during a live game as well? Like, does motivating a player during a live game affect his performance?
I mean, right before, right once they're in, you pretty much you give them the thing, and obviously once they go in, we need to make sure that they're in the right state, and right in the middle, it just adds to confusion. So it's like because they are in the thick of action, so. You stay away, just observe, but right before and right at the end are the key factors. And the players know, like, once they become really good at it, like, okay, they need to raise their level up, or they need to kind of taper it down. And so they can do that only if they are clear. And anything during the game just kind of messes them up. But right before is the best time. Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir. That brings us to the end of audience questions. It was a pleasure interacting with you. Thank you so much for answering all these questions. And I guess everybody had a really great time.
Thanks a lot. It's been wonderful with you and Madhav. Good questions and great questions also from the audience. And I know this is an ocean. You can't cover everything in like 1 hour. But you try to do the best you can. But I mean, you guys have done a fantastic job, and bring people like all these in different avenues too, and I'll be looking forward to seeing them also. Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
Now we have Dr. Kalpana. She's from the Office of Alumni Relations and Institute Development. Mm-hmm. Good evening, ma'am.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Badri, and good evening, participants. Incredible session and interaction. I was just spellbound. Thanks for joining us, Mr. Badri. I saw it eye-opening most of the times, and I'm sure the participating students also would have felt the same way. I'm happy you two enjoyed answering our boys' questions. I will take this opportunity, to tell you that under the director's interaction and instructions now, the Institute is actually taking up path-breaking initiatives driven by alumni. For instance, the previous year we had a 3-credit course on business and entrepreneurship for engineers. So likewise, I think these are not far off when we can think of introducing sports for engineers also as a part of the curriculum is one of the electives. So I think, yeah, you have sown the seeds for it, and we'll see how it germinates.
Yeah, thank you. It's a pleasure. Thank you, Pratna, again, for having me here, and it's great to come back and share some of our experiences, insights here. And yeah, I mean, the NIT has always done a great job, and I look forward to more from you guys doing, and keep up the good energy. So.
Yeah, thank you so much. And on behalf of the Institute and the Alumni Interaction Cell, and in my own capacity as an alumna, I profusely thank you for this time and being willing to share your thoughts. So it was just flowing from your side to us. Thank you so much, Mr. Badri. Thanks for joining in. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Kalpana. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thanks, boys. Thanks for the opportunity.
Definitely, ma'am. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Once again, it was a pleasure talking to you. It was an absolute honor. Thank you for answering all these questions. And definitely, I feel after this session, a lot of the boys would be taking up sports psychology, careers in life, right? Sports careers in life. Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah. Thank you again, vice versa, and good luck to all of you, and all you guys do. Thank you again.
I would also like to thank all the people who tuned in for this session. Thank you so much.